A very good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where and when you're watching us from. My name is Mutathi wa Wanyaga, Mujiro wa Barea Karigithi, na ngwihoka kuma ng'ongo ciothe iria ciumaga huho. Muri thayo, thayo, thayo. Today is a good day, the 3rd of April 2024. And we are now in the second quarter of the year. So for the people who are making resolutions, oh, they are making resolutions and all that. I hope right now the resolutions are starting to show because now the year is in the second quarter. Today we will be talking about unemployment, youth unemployment in Africa. So welcome to African Kona. This is the 43rd episode. Oh my! And with me is the gang is here, and our friend Meshak, Jeff, and Mina. How are you?
I
Uh,
am fine.
Good
My
evening.
week has been fine, just like yours. And as always, I'm very happy to be here and have these discussions with people who I know are intellects.
Mm, good to have you here, Jeff.
For me, I'm happy to be here again with the same people. I think the one who have not interacted with is Meshach, but I hope we'll interact and engage in a meaningful conversation. And
Mm.
it's the month of April Fools. Collins na Washira msiniletee hiyo mchezo, tutakosana. Yeah.
Yeah. I was told people are fooling each other the other day. Anyway, I can see Fred Congo is already live and he's telling us, I am the one serving tea here. Welcome, Meshak. Okay, let us proceed. Let us hear from Mesha. Kindly introduce yourself. Tell us, what you do. I can see you have written here you're the podcast host of Info Power, and I was listening to episode one. Quite interesting. So, Mesha, tell us who you are.
So, good evening, everybody. My name is Meshak Omondi. I'm a graduate from KU. I pursued economics, but I'm still a student of economics. I'm also a podcast host of Info Power. So, Info Power, in full, is information is power. I believe information is power, and some of the problems that we have in society is because people does not have the actual information, and I think that is what inspired my, podcast show. That's why I created it. I'm new here. Of course, everybody here is new to me apart from Washira, but I'm glad to join the team, and I'm hoping to have a very fruitful conversation moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been following what you're doing, Meshak, online, and I think you're doing a great job in terms of even the Google how do you call it, webinars. They are really nice, and I see you bring in a lot of information for people like us who might be otherwise not ignorant, but maybe they do not know. So we appreciate
Yeah.
you being here. So today we're talking about unemployment, simple as that. And youth unemployment in Africa is just as cliche as it might sound. I'm sorry to say so. It is just as cliche as it might sound because we have been talking about unemployment and especially youth unemployment since I can remember. Since I was in primary school, one of the things that we used to give as reasons was unemployment. So we are here again talking about unemployment. I don't know, Mina or Lushasha, before even we get into much details, when you hear this unemployment, especially youth unemployment in Africa, what is that thing that comes to your mind?
The one thing that comes to mind is the stories we're being given as kids that enda shule usome, after school utapata kazi mzuri, then you'll earn well, and then from then you'll live a good life. But shock on us, you realize that hiyo zilikuwa tu, they were just stories. If you come out here, you realize that life is very different. Utasoma, but hapo kwa getting the good job, it's like that is where the line is drawn. And for our parents that worked, because for them immediately they left university, they got jobs. For us, you leave university and then you start wondering, were those 3 years, were those 4 years in university worth it? Were those five
Mm-hmm.
years worth it? Because as it is, it's very tough. You can go here to offices. DJ Shiti says if you pass by Jivanji utapata maloya wamekaa na with their cell phones wameshika na blada. It might look like a joke, but once you get to this step of life, you realize that it's very real and these things are happening. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a song, so many vijana mtie bidii mwisho wa kusoma mtapata kazi nzuri sana. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that song. My friend, I went to school. I'm still in school. Hiyo part ya mwisho I am looking for it myself. So is what in our culture we call Nganasia Malimo. They were just like fables and stories, and and it is so sad the majority of young people are saying like that, but it is not everybody. I would also like to hear from Meshak.
Yeah.
Meshak, when you just hear about this concept of youth unemployment in Africa, tell me what comes to your mind. What do you think about it when such a thing is mentioned, Meshak?
So, okay. So, of course, unemployment is such a big crisis in Africa, especially here in Kenya, mostly. But the most intuitive thing I think that comes in my mind when I hear of unemployment is of course like the failure of government and the failure of leadership in these countries, not only in Africa, not only in Kenya, but majority of countries in Africa. Because
Mhm.
I believe that unemployment is a solvable problem because other countries have solved it. So countries like Singapore, these are countries that are perfect experiment, that a country can come from rags to riches. Because there was a time when we were equal. There was a time that we even used to borrow this kind of countries, Singapore, South Korea. So the most immediate thing that comes into my mind when somebody mentions unemployment is ideally the failure of leadership and the failure of governance and failure of lack of good policy to address these problems.
Mhm. Thank you, Meshach. Jeff, for you, maybe you're wondering what the hell you're talking about because you're not yet fully unemployed. They normally say after you have graduated or after you're done with school, now you become unemployed. You don't say you're a student anymore. So, Jeff, maybe let us also hear from you, somebody who is still in campus. I know mnasikianga story, there are no jobs outside here. So what about you? What do you think, when you mention about unemployment, what comes to the top of your mind, especially in Africa?
Oh, okay. I remember when ilianza kunihit is when during Corona, there were videos trending, ati unaenda stage and the bodaboda guy anakwambia, unamwambia akupeleke shule, anavyo anakuuliza, oh, pia ulifanya BCom, twende tu. So when I hear youth unemployment, first things comes to my mind that our young people have the average skills, wameenda shule, uh, primary, secondary and university, na kenye waliambiwa after that mtapata kazi, but wakikuja huku nje mambo ni tofauti. 10,000 people wanabishania like 6 positions. So that was I see that as youth unemployment.
Okay, okay. And I can see somebody by the name of Senator Raphael is in the house saying good evening and is tuned in. Thank you, Raphael, from Baraton. Asante sana. What I'm hearing you guys say is that, watu wameenda shule. So, Maila, you want to tell me unemployment only is for people who have gone to school or people who have graduated? What about that friend of mine who is somewhere in the heart of a place known as Gobet? Never went to school or maybe go to maybe class 7 or 8 and they don't have jobs. Are they less of unemployed than us who went to universities?
I believe we all lie in the same box. And I think all of us mentioned school because when you look at these job opportunities, the very first thing at the top of the list is you need to have fulfilled this and these academic requirements. So we look at it from a point that, yes, I have fulfilled these requirements, but I have not yet gotten the job. And the thing about unemployment is when you're unemployed, a lot of people they advise you from the point of view that you do not use your brain, from the point of view that you're not thinking, but that is not the case. Yes, there might be these people that have not gotten a formal employment and they're not a formal education and they're not employed. I think to them it's not such a heavy burden to bear because from nothing comes. They stayed in the village, they did what they did, and from that they've not gotten a job. So for them, from my point of view, their burden is not so heavy to bear because they've not made that much investment as compared to someone who's gone to school and studied for all those years and expects
But
that
Maya,
from their
you need
education.
to fair. Hivyo vile unasema, in philosophy we say ex nihil nihil of it. Maybe I like to hear Jeff's thoughts. Ati from nothing. Are they really not, I don't know, it's politically correct.
I'm speaking of it from the point of formal employment, not informal employment.
Mm-hmm.
So for formal employment, they cannot argue their case because they do not fulfill the minimum requirements. Then again, if you go to the village setting, for instance, those people might not be employed, but they find a way to make their living from just hanging around. They can either go farm, which in and of itself is a form of employment. They can
Mm-hmm.
maybe decide to look after their herd of cattle. They can do these things which do not appear very formal, and from that they can make their living. So they might not be formally employed, but in a way they have found a way to employ themselves.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. You know, I want to hear, M- Meshach thoughts on this. I want you to go a little bit deeper because you had already started mentioning some of these causes of unemployment, but even before you even do that, Meshach, before even you give us more insights on the causes of unemployment. We are taking it for granted that people understand what unemployment is. Maybe Meshach, you are in that field of economics, so you understand hii mambo ya watu kutokuwa na kazi. Maybe before you even tell us the causes, maybe and explain to us this concept of unemployment, because something that mine has brought in, the issue of earning a living. Is it different from unemployment? Meshach, kindly unmute yourself.
Okay. So I be employed when you have anything that, a skill, or you have something that you've learned and you're not working with. So for example, if I am an economist, but I'm doing podcasting, I'm not employed because I'm not exactly doing what this, I'm not like, adding value to the economy, to what government invested in me. So government invested money on me to go do economics and later come back to the economy and benefit the economy in that field. But I'm not doing that. I'm doing another thing. So I'm not employed. That's the first angle to talk about it or to look into it. But I think majorly the most, mainstream way to look at it, and many Kenyans look at it, is ideally you don't have any source of, or any way of earning a living. So you don't have any mean of paying your rent. You don't have any mean of, taking a child to school. You don't have any way of having food at night or food in the table. But when you talk about that, that's not unemployment. That is generally lack of, a way of earning a living. But unemployment in traditional sense is ideally you have something you have a skill in your head, something you can do, but the country is not benefiting from it. I think that's what I think. That's the view of unemployment from intellectual point of view. I think.
Mhm.
Yeah. Meshach, I've heard what you've said, and I've tried to look at the situation in which we find ourselves in because you have stories like CEOs most of the times are not trained on that specific field in which they work in. For example, you can find the CEO of Safaricom is somebody who studied something like engineering. So, according to you, do you mean that that person, because he does not work in an area in which he was not trained, he is not employed in a way?
Of course, he's employed because, no, for you to become a CEO, you went some had a training. For you to become a manager, you went through some training, and now you're benefiting a society, you're benefiting a company as a result of that. But if you, as a graduate, you just come out of school, you are an engineering a graduate, but you end up, selling eggs there, you're not employed. You know, you're just, yes, you have a mean of life, but you're not employed. I think that's what I mean. So in your case, these guys were trained. You are trained to become whoever you are in that particular company. Otherwise, you didn't been hired. And I think that's those are my thoughts on that. Yeah.
I think I differ with I'm differing with Meshach here, you know. So you have to tell me, for you to be like employed, you have to be in that field. Because let us assume this guy studied, let's say something like, let me say what I studied, philosophy, right? And then I end up working in a tech company or in an engineering company. So I am unemployed.
Yes, you're unemployed in that sense. Okay,
What?
I've given you two angles. I've given you two angles. Huh? I've given you two angles. Huh?
Uh-huh.
There's
Mm,
this, there's this mainstream way that many people view it. That I don't have any job, so I'm unemployed. You know, I
mm,
can't earn money, so I'm unemployed.
mm,
Right? So, but what we do know is that being unemployed means, first of all, the preceding facts of being unemployed is that you have something that you can actually do. So you are a skilled carpenter, but you're not doing carpentry. So you are. So when the government is, so when, for example, this is what government do annually to come up with annual statistics on who is employed or who is not employed. They ask, so how many graduates in economics we have in this country? So how many graduates of economics we absorbed in this year? And then at the end of the day, they come up with figures. These are the people who have jobs in that field. These are the people who have jobs who did that particular course. And so in the end of the day, that's how they come with statistics. They don't say that, okay, so we have 10 mamambogas, and so we have 10 mamambogas who are employed in the economy. They don't do that. If you
okay.
check clearly, yes.
Mhm. You see, Meshach, I was reading somewhere with mine that not reading, I heard that if you there's a difference between being broke and being poor, and then once you get to the age of 25, you no longer say came from a humble background. You are the humble background. You see, I did not come from a poor family. You are the poor family yourself.
Yes.
Anyway, I can see my friend Alex Oburu sending in a comment saying, I am afraid I have to disagree with Meshach. The whole point of education is to open your mind and see problems as opportunities. So, okay, I'm sharing my thoughts with I mean, not my, I'm thinking the same line with Alex here, because the way Meshach is putting it is a little bit different. So let me agree to disagree. But Jeff, Sasa, you guys who are in school currently, we are not in school at Kitambo. It was just in the recent past, but you are currently, in the undergraduate process. What solutions are these guys telling you? Because me, remember when I was there, I did not hear many solutions. And then I was saying, you guys go and employ yourself. There's no jobs in Kenya and blah 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 blah. So Jeff, what are your people in the university saying? Okay, number one, we agree there is unemployment, but what solutions are they giving you? Kama hakuna, ongea ukweli.
Okay. Some solutions zenye we have been given is that we have to go an extra mile. That your degree is not enough. You should find other skills. Because the degree, kuna vitu zingine personal that you should have, e.g. communication. Communication si kitu unaenda kufunzwa, lazima ukae chini, lazima ujikubali na ukubali kufunzwa. So we should emphasize on skills zenye unafaa upate, kama kama unaandika uko field engineering, hakuna kitu imekustop kujua vitu za philosophy. One way or another unaweza pata, unaweza zitumia kwa field zingine, so unafaa
But I thought
open
you
to
guys are
learning
going
new
to
things
school just to
and
learn this thing. See, you're going to school, they tell you to learn these soft skills. Alafu, are they
sorry
showing you
Washira.
this?
Yeah. Kama unaona sahii kaa shule, we do some things very practical. Kama my course, kuna vitu tunafanya kama za resources, but unapata major part kama za class tunafunzwa how tunaweza fanya kazi as a group. You see, kama hiyo unaenda kuiweka huko nje, inakupatia skills. Unajua venye unaweza relate na watu kikazi ama si kikazi, unapata.
Hmm?
Alafu pia wana emphasize na tuanzishe biashara but hajatuambia how. Sasa hiyo ndio shida.
Okay, so Maina Olisasa, they are being told they look for skills, and I don't know, they will resources give people employment. These things have been said and said and said for a very long time. What are your thoughts on that?
We are being told to look for skills, but if you come out, it's very different. Just let me give you an example. There was one time we were looking for attachment, and mind
Mm,
you, attachment is unpaid employment, so there is nothing your employer is losing to have you there. You'd think it will be one of the easiest things to get, but once you get to the field, you realize that it's one of the toughest things to get. You walk, and I remember even Jeff was telling us a while back. He walked with Brandon for also long looking for an attachment, to the point that even they even went to a company that makes biscuits just to get that opportunity. But even there, it was still tough. So yes, we might be told these things like communication, but once you get out here, you realize that sometimes it depends on who you know. It's not always tied to your skills. It depends on how many connections you've made to be able to access that job. And then,
yeah.
so one funny thing that uh, a friend of mine called Meshax likes to say is that the secret is not to look for employment in Kenya. The secret is according to him, you look for a passport, and then you look for Meshach, and then you'll find ways to take you abroad, because there perhaps you might be appreciated more than you're appreciated within the country.
Mm. You see, I'm not siding with these employers or whatever, but you see, whatever people are taught in school is nothing close to what is needed in the market. Right now, we are in the market, man, and you can see somebody is coming. Even remember yourself when you're just wondering, this information that I have in my head, nobody needs it. And then you look at somebody who is coming from this campus, these universities, fellow young people like us, and they don't know the basic of things. The basic of things. So you wonder then, is then the education system being fair to the people? And that our, for example, Jeff is saying they have been told that they are taught resources and what. You will find whatever he has been they are teaching them. Once he gets out here, the employer tells him, you know what, sahau whatever me. I remember I had somebody saying that whatever you learned in school, forget it. You are here to start afresh. You can imagine. And I
It
can see
looks
Alex.
like
Yeah, yeah.
that is that a circle of life, because when you're in primary, your teacher taught you this and this and this, and then you went to secondary school, they tell you forget everything you're taught in primary. This is how things work. And then you go
True.
from secondary, you go to campus, your lecturer tells you, now forget everything you learned in campus. This is how you learned in high school. This is how campus works. And in the
Mm,
job industry, it's not any different. It's like forget
true.
everything you
True.
learned in campus and start learning anew. So going through these educational systems in a way is not a sure way to accessing that formal employment.
Yeah, I can see Alex Oburu saying that I agree with Jeff. There is a huge mismatch between what people are being taught and what the job market needs. True. You know, whatever people are being taught out here doesn't the market does not need it. Now,
What do you mean?
Mesha,
What do you mean by market? What do you mean by market? Because I don't quite understand what people talk about, because there's certain professions, for example, like law. You understand, there's certain professions like law that
uh-huh,
literally you are trained what exactly you're gonna do outside there. The only thing
mhm,
remaining for you is get the technicalities and get the experience in the politics of the
yeah,
profession you're doing. But you find that
mm,
most of the oftentimes there's certain professions, for example, like law and even here in economics,
mm.
just that we have I don't know, but we just have a labor market that doesn't appreciate that. But I'm quite sure that there's a lot of spaces you can get into as a person who has just is off much. Like a toddler from campus. There's so many areas that absorbs you and uses what exactly you have in your head of campus.
And
I don't know,
and
but
Mesha,
of course
think of, think of it this way. Think of it this way. There are those disciplines or areas that Okay, let us focus on especially the applied human sciences and humanities and such kind of courses, social sciences. Things are always changing, right? For maybe even look at even the pure sciences like biology will remain biology, right? A doctor, whatever is taught is what you'll find. You will not find a liver, it may change, it will be a liver now.
Yeah.
But the way things are happening in the hospital itself is changing. The technology that is there is changing, but the schools and is not being is not teaching people to do that. And then look at it this way. Those are the things that matter. Kama hizo yenye Jeff amesema, those soft skills, those small skills, those small things that matter, these people don't have. Okay, you might be as good as, I don't know, in doing what, I understand, but is it the only thing that is required in the market today? Remember, right
So
now, people who are getting
mm,
into the market, let me use that word, market, or into the industries, are mostly Gen Zs. And who are there? Who are they finding? The millennials. You know the issues of the generation. So the Gen Zs that are don't even go further from there.
just to mention, I by the way, I think when these high school toddlers finished school, a number of them were reaching out to me and asking me, "What do you think I can do in university?" I was thinking of structural engineering, or thinking of medicine. Can you advise me on what to do in campus? And I was like, "Oh God." In my time, if I knew, I was like, if I was like them, I would just go and do anything, because I think first of all, campus, just let me just agree with you for a minute. you know People understand, or people misunderstand why we go to campus. you know I think campus, you go to campus to prepare you for the real life out there,
Mhm.
and for you to be able to at least impact society at the end of the day. That's why people go to do masters, because they want to deeply understand the problems that they in that certain field. For example, if you are an educationist, you want to understand what are the policies that we are facing in this country that doesn't work for us, so you go and study. You want to go impact society. But these high school toddlers,
Mesha, kindly, you have muted yourself. Please unmute.
yes.
Yeah.
So as I was saying before, is that when you go into campus, is of course just how do you put it? You are there to develop skills that can enable you outside world. Communication. Are you good at communication? Are your social skills better? So I always, because I was a student leader in my school, and I used to, those juniors, that the most important thing is that as you get first class in your classroom, also get first class outside world.
Mesha, once again, I think there's an issue. You keep muting. I think that your system keeps muting you. Kindly be checking on that.
I don't know why, but can you get me now?
Yeah, right now you're okay.
Can you get me now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So as I was saying, I was a student leader back in my campus, and what I used to tell them is that what you need to do is that so what I used to tell them is that the most important thing is that as you get first class like first class in your classroom, get first class in social, in your social skills, in your social life, because that's the most important thing in life. You are gonna get opportunity when you're social, when you know how to speak, when you know how to interact with people, when you know how to know people. And so, if ideally, because when you're high school, the most important thing you think is that your parent has told you go to school and do medicine, and come up there and get job and come improve our life, which is very important. So there's so
Mhm.
much start that, and there's so much withdrawn from their social skill, which I think is very, very important. Yeah, I will agree with you on that. Skills are very
Okay,
important. Social.
Alex Oburu says, I mean, most of the industry, the course is outdated. Law and medicine, most of the things don't change. And he also says a good example is tech. Someone is being taught how to code with HTML, and now we have an AI like Devin AI that can do the coding. You know, it's so true. We are not even used to ChatGPT. ChatGPT has already evolved to something else. The world is so fast. Eh? It's moving so fast. Anyway, uh, we have heard what Jeff has said. About the solutions that are being given there. Aya, Minor, what is then the solution? Because we are living in a generation that we are saying this is the self-employment generation. We are going to employ ourselves. We are going to be our own bosses. We are going to look for our own resources. And then I want you to also understand that there are some people who categorize self-employment and entrepreneurship in two different ways, but that is deep in leadership things. But for now, let us just assume it is blanket. So people who are employed and people who are self-employed. Um, this is the generation that people are really, really, really pushing for self-employment. Minor.
Yeah. I believe part of the solution lies in addressing this problem at its root. Because I think all of us agree that sometimes we go to school and learn things that are not suited for the place we find ourselves in. And that's why I think we switched from the curriculum we had now to going into CBC. So I think we need to look into the education system introspectively and try to find out that, yes, I'm studying this. Is whatever I'm studying relevant to the country I'm in? Because you find, for instance, people are studying civil engineering in Kenya. And then shock on you that when there's a building to be built, it's not built by Kenyan engineers. So yeah, they were taught something and then they are doing something which is another thing which I think we could do is now the government needs to look at when they're giving these job opportunities, they give priority to their citizens. We learn to love our own. Because this is an issue that we've talked about not only during this show but also during other shows that we've had. It's very frustrating to go to school and then after you've gone to school, your own government chooses to employ someone from a different country at the expense of you who is a citizen and has studied for that. Apart from the government doing that and looking into our educational system, something that I believe most of us are doing now is self-employment, getting into a space where you can make a living for yourself and by yourself. A lot of us have realized now that there is no one coming to save us. You might go out there and look for employment for the whole of 30 years and then find after the 30 years or 40 years of employment that you've made nothing of yourself. We're in a period where we've realized that we are the architects of our own downfall. We are the masters of our own destiny. So we are realizing that, yeah, it might be tough, but if you try, there is very little chance that you can try for the whole of 30 years and fail. So for me, self-employment is the way to go, because as we know, the systems, we keep on saying they'll change, but they don't change. We'll say the government will do this and this and this, but we all know it will just be words. At the end of the day, nothing will happen. So we are the only people who can save ourselves by looking into entrepreneurship and self-employment.
I hear you. I hear you, Jeff. Then, if we are employing ourselves, all of us employ ourselves. Who will, we need people to be employed. And then I am sure that I hear other people saying that employment is not for them. I mean, self-employment. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of that. What do I say? No, no. Me, I'm not made of that cloth. Me. Let me just go employed, and
I've heard
self-employment
of
is
it
not.
and
Yes,
I've heard of it and I've experienced it firsthand. It's not easy. It's one of the toughest things you could do.
true. It's very hard. So there's somebody who just says, you know what, I am not made to suffer. So let me just go and get employed and move on with life. So Jeff, what about you? What do you think? To keep a solution, the solution that you are being given there in school. We are saying, when I saying, like self-employment is the way to go. What other things? What do you think about that?
Okay. Just on add to what Mina said, you see there are these upcoming SMEs, small and medium enterprises. Although huko juu kumejaa, the government sahi kupata space ni ngumu. The government can support these little startups so that they can create job opportunities for other people, other young people. Other thing is gender disparities. You find some cultures they are limiting women to work, so ati kama wewe ni mwanamke huwezi fanya kazi. This is also leading to unemployment. So they should also emphasize in gender equality. Another point is Self-employment, I think I can think of two now, but maybe I will add as we continue.
Jeff, allow me just to say something on what you said. You've mentioned something to do with gender equality. But from my point of view and looking at how things are now, you'll find that right now the boy child is even more disadvantaged than the girl child. Because if you look at it in terms of employment, a lot of the people getting employment are not the girl, are not women or people of the female gender. They are not people of the male gender, but in fact they are people of the female gender. So I think uh, that thing on gender balance does not hold its weight that much in like you said, because things have switched. It was not like it was before.
I agree with you, Collins. Uh, and I have a question before we proceed. I
Okay,
hear
hold
that
on, hold on.
you see,
You are agreeing with Collins, and I think you had just said something totally different. Oh, you're
and
confusing
it's
us.
making sense. You see, Limona, the way Collins may put it out, it's making more sense. I was looking it from a women perspective, but venye Collins ameput it out, you see pia Bolchard wamewekwa kando kidogo. So that point is valid. Sikuwa nimefikiriria hivyo na naisupport sana. So pia mi niko na swali. Unapata many jobs saa hii unapata zinakuitisha 8 years of experience na maybe umetoka campus saa hii. So where do you think you can get those 8 years of experience or 12 years of experience?
Maybe Meta can help us to answer that question. Meta, kindly unmute and help a younger brother here. And after 8 years of experience,
Ah,
Mesh, please unmute.
So to start with, I think the biggest lie you ever been sold by everybody, from your parents to the government and everybody around you, is that go to school to get a job. That's the first lie. Because it's like we go to school and I'm like, oh, so I'm getting done and I'm gonna look for internship for 6 years, for 6 months, and then get a job. So you see the hope, the kind of thinking we have, and then it makes us then pronounce ourselves unemployed if we fail to get employed at the end of the day. But I think before I continue on like what can we do about it, I wanted to comment on something that I think Maina has said on the issue of the boy child wamerushwa kando siku hizi. This is a very controversial issue. Uh, because Maina, no, Maina and the team, I think we need to concede that uh, majority of the wealth right now is still being owned by men. You know, we have to consider that majority of the underprivileged people between male and females are still females. You know, um, and so the ridiculousness I get from all these arguments is that, so okay, so we shouldn't uplift women right now because boy child are wanakuwa pushed away. Truth is that we're having many females coming into school, and that is just because previously they were not in school. So we are now experiencing a boom in the number of universities, or we're experiencing a boom in owners of cars, females, and there's a high number of people right now of women getting employed. So I don't get it why this increase should then be resisted by the argument that we are being pushed away, because of course, truth be told, the system has always been so unfair to those people. And the reason why they were unempowered was because we had a patriarchal system which crashed down on them. And when a system has changed and now we are transitioning to at least ensure that at least there's some sort of equality, the argument comes that boy child wamerushwa nje. So what do we do about it? Yeah. Maybe Maina, you can just comment on it before I get to proceed with
yeah,
my points.
there's that school of thought, and then there's the other school of thought that a lot of the people who are handing out jobs right now, a lot of the people who are in the top management positions are elderly males, and by elderly, I don't mean that old. I believe there are people from around their 40s to their 60s. And thinking of it practically, if 5 applications were to come in and the person at the top is a man, uh, let's say 6 applications were to come in, three from women, three from people of the female gender, and then three from people of the male gender. I am sure as things have been happening in the recent past, I'm sure those three females will more likely than not get that job as compared to those three men. So yes, there might be that increase in the females going to school, but I think there are also under other underlying issues that have led to us reaching this point that we are in today.
But
So
also,
let me just
minor,
ask.
you can think of it this way. I've seen the ladies have been really competitive, measure, really competitive. Some of them are really good. They're not getting it because of favors. Some ladies are just really good compared to the boys and
Yes,
the
yes,
men
yes,
out here.
yes. So I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
quite
they're
true.
really good,
Uh,
and I think we need to appreciate the fact that they are good because they've been told they are good, and women empowerment has been happening for all so long. And the boy child, according to me, has been given not as much attention as he should have been given. So yeah, all these issues are not mutually exclusive. There are a lot of issues which are very valid. What Oshira said is very valid. What Meshak has said is very valid. And I believe at the end of the day, we're having these discussions to come to a consensus. So yeah,
yes, yes.
for me, no issue holds much weight above the other issue. They are all things that contribute towards what we're experiencing today.
I think absolutely that's true. So by the way, what can we do about it? I was to say that. So I think unemployment is a very, very complex issue that cannot just be solved, single dimensionally, because it's a very structural issue that has so many reasons behind it. So it could be one, there's, the, the way you guys have said it, we have a mismatch of education system into labor market. So you find that what we're being taught there cannot get absorbed out here. So in the end of the day, you're fucked. So you're like, okay, so what am I gonna do? I start my own business.
Yeah, there's that, and I think
Um,
there's also one other thing which we've not talked about,
is it,
because a lot
you're speaking.
a lot of the a lot of the people who have gone through formal employment tend to shun an informal employment, because if you look at things like agriculture in and of itself, it's like a form of employment. But for someone who's gone to school to get their hands dirty in the farm, they say, I cannot do that, and they went to university. As someone who's gone to school, if you tell them, I've heard of something to do with Jokal, you can go and make this and this and this, more often than not, they'll tell you that that is beneath me. So I think we should also try to venture beyond this formal employment, and try to look at things which might not look formal or very pleasant, and try to get into away from these white collar jobs and try looking at employment in the sense of blue collar jobs that might be require that much physical activity, but at least you're doing something, you're getting something for what you've done.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's true. So yeah, but of course, it's understandably. I think in my position it would be understandable because, bro, umeteseka pale campus, bro. So and a lot of money. No, by the way, you spend a lot of money in education. It was quite a big investment. So somebody's like, okay, so nimeenda shule and sasa nienda up in Jokali. Sasa hiyo story. So, but you understand, right? The kind of value you want to get out of education, itself makes you just to shy away from such kind of opportunities, right? Yeah. But Sasa, I wanted to say,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's the issue, for example, this issue, I think the issue of unemployment cannot just be solved by changing education system. Because so assume that sasa tumeenda shule and we have a system which is skill based, which I think CBC is trying to propose, that we start if you're a musician and you're a child, we start inventing that, we start investing in that. Or if you can do plumbing, just start doing it ukiwa grade 6. So the problem I have with that is that we're still going to face the same problem. If you have million people who can do plumbing and there's no opportunities out there, where are they going to be? It's just the same scenario. You've trained people to be, carpenters, and there's the middle class is not rising. Who can buy those furnitures? Then those guys are just in the end of the day fucked. So in the end of the day, what I think, in my opinion, I think it's very important, just like Jeff has said, that an intervention be done, like a policy where this thing can only be solved by a policy, because it's a structural problem which we are facing, and limited problems and limited opportunities. There's limited opportunities which need to be provided there.
Hmm.
So when you get out of school, you need to ensure that you have that opportunity. That's how you can create employment actually in the end of the day. Not having the skills and you have no opportunity out there. Yes.
Thank you, Meshach, for that. I think we also have to strike a balance, you know. Sometimes, we live in a lamenting Africa, and sometimes we also need to put ourselves on this other receiving end. Maybe as we wrap it up, as we finish this conversation tonight, I like to hear, your final thoughts. And now, gravitating towards what I've just said. What about Africa now? What is we have given the solutions, but at the end of the day, you know, Africa has the biggest population in terms of young people. It's actually the youngest population, rapidly growing, and in the next like 5 or 6 years, not even 10, the majority will be as in not even a majority. The majority is already young people. So you can imagine if that trend continues, na vile huku watu wamesema it is a weather for two. So you can imagine how the continent will be looking like in the next few years. So maybe let me start with Meshach. Let me hear your final comments before we call it a show. I'm not sure whether Meshach can hear me. Please unmute.
I think there's an issue. Maybe you can just repeat what you just said.
Yeah, so I'm asking, what is your final thoughts as we finish this conversation, especially to gravitating towards Africa, because unemployment, yes, is there almost every part of the world, and with whatever reasons. But for us Africans, Africa, what do we do in an African manner, to solve our African problem?
So in my final thoughts, I think there's this mistake that I think many African nations have been, doing, and that is that we can invest in agriculture to make ourselves rich. I think it's important to have food insecure, like you need to be a food secure country, and of course you need to be having a very robust agricultural sector performing well. But you cannot use that to create wealth. And the only way you can create employment is when you create wealth, right? Because look, the only thing we export is tea, these things which are not quite much valuable outside there. And this is a mistake that generally African countries do. They believe that agriculture is the backbone of our economy, and when we invest in agriculture, we can create wealth. That is not true. And that is I think that's the first thing that we can do. But secondly, the issue of self-employment. I think people need to be, because we are a big population, and we can actually create jobs for ourselves, because I think right now things are moving online. There's a lot of AI is coming, and there is a lot of online presence of people. And I think when we focus on that, we can create actually jobs for ourselves instead of like relying on employment created by government and those corporates. So self-employment can be a key way that African youths can actually take advantage of, or like resort to. I think generally, I'm still hopeful that we're gonna battle it out. We are going to sort out these issues of unemployment. But before that, we really have to take advantage of things which are really coming in our way, which is technology, and ensuring that at least our government
Mhm.
are doing well when it comes to policy solutions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Meshach. I can see a question by Milan Meshach. I think, Collins, you can finalize with this, that we have had issues with brain drain in Africa. Innovative young Africans are taken to other countries to solve problems for them and leave out their own country. How should we solve this as Africa? I'm having a problem reading this question, knowing who has written this question. But Mana, please respond as we wrap it up.
Unajua Meshack has asked this question with his passport kwa mkono ya right, ready to
Mm,
leave as soon as soon as the call comes. But yeah,
mm,
we talked about this issue last week, And the problem with brain drain is it's like trying to patch the wound. You're not actually solving the problem. You go there, but the issues which you left in your country are still there. And I think the only solution to this is part of what we preach. We preach about being African and loving being African and loving everything about Africa. And in loving Africa, you'd rather suffer in trying to build your country than trying to go abroad. So yeah, very briefly, it's just we need to learn to be African and learn that nobody is coming to solve our problems for us. And as young people, take the mantle and decide to, you know, like create solutions for the problems we find ourselves having. And then on the issue to do with employment, I'd like to talk of it from a very personal point of view. I've realized that yes, the job market is very hard to get into. And I've also realized that there are very many opportunities in self-employment that perhaps a lot of people don't know. Because, Ashira, just earlier today, we were talking about something that is very needed in the market, but is not there. So if you just take the chance to study and learn of the things that people need within the market, it's very easy for you to employ yourself formally. So yeah, I stress on self-employment, and then the other thing which I also mentioned during the show is I also mentioned to do with things to do with informal employment. You don't have to sit in an office for you to be employed. There are people who spend their entire days in a farm but make millions. You have a president saying, from eggs alone, I make 10 million shillings in a day. And this is possible for any one of us. We need to shift our mindsets from employment being only that formal part. We can also venture into these other things. So yeah, those two things. Self-employment and then looking at the informal sector. And then, as we conclude, I'd like to remind you guys once again that Washira Speaks is not just a YouTube channel. Yes, we might have these discussions on YouTube, but we do more than just having these discussions. We have an entire catalog of services that you can go through. We do public speaking, we do leadership training, we do things to do with African philosophy, we do leadership training. So yeah, we have an entire catalog of services that you can go through. You can reach out to us if you have an event that you want us to MC in. You can reach out to us if you want us to talk to you about what it means to be African. We can also do that. We can do public speaking. At the beginning, you saw a video on public speaking. We can speak to guests on a given topic, and then we can also teach you guys on how to speak on public. And also we can teach you on things to do with your posture, things to do with how you address people, things to do with how you, if you're nervous in front of your crowd, how you deal with those issues. So yeah, Washira Speaks does a lot, and we hope that we'll start seeing in comments coming in from you guys saying, you know what, I don't know how to speak in public so well, but you can help me this and this and this way. So yeah, reach out to us if you need any of our services. Apart from that, have a good evening, a morning, or night, depending on when and where you're watching us from.
Yeah,
Now
thank
I
you, thank
hand
you.
it over to you, Ashira.
Thank you, guys. I like to thank everybody who has watched us live, and in a special manner to thank Mina Ulishesha and Mesha Komondi for sticking here up till the end of this broadcast. And just to wrap it up, I also heard from a certain facilitator that there is a country in the Tiger Nations. I don't know if it's Singapore, that once a startup is started, is established in that country, by the next 5 years, if you do not have more than 20 employees, you are cancelled. And you can imagine. So these issues of unemployment, I think I don't know if it will be African enough for me to say this, but let me say it is not a bad thing. In the quote of JF Kennedy, that don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And that's the same call that I'm telling my fellow young people in Africa, that look at yourself in the other way around. Don't look at the problems. You look at yourself as a solution giver. Ask yourself what you can do to maliza hii mambo ya unemployment. With that, as Collins has mentioned, we have a lot in terms of services that we do. You can go and check it across our website. From here, I'd like to wish you a very, very good night. Thank you, Meshak. Thank you very, very much for sparing your time to come. I hope we will be invited to Info Power very soon, so that we can also come and tell them what we preach this gospel of conscientizing Africa. Thank you very much. From me, it's a good night. Enjoy the rest of of your evening. Oh, one more comment coming in before I forget. I see Kemani Mwagi saying excellent insights. Oshira, thank you, Kemani. We really appreciate you being here. So, good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening wherever you are. Wish you well. My name is Mutavi Washira Wanyara. Ishinigira Rashia Mobimu Body. Dayo, dayo, dayo. Good night.